Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotarashata Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki. Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, entitled Liberation, Chapter 19, entitled King Yayati Attains Liberation, text number 16. Jadusta Jaduma Jadustya Yadurmati Bhir Jirjato Jana Jirjate Tam Tristandhu Kanibaham Sarmakamo Drutantyayet Jadustya Jadurmati Bhir Jirjato Jani Jirjate Tam Trishnandu Kanibaham Sarmakamo Drutam Tyajet Jadustya Jadurmati Bhir Jirjato Jani Jirjate Tam Trishnandu Kanibaham Sarmakamo Drutam Tyajet. Christian. Tam Trishnandu Kanibaham Sarmakamo Drutam Tyajet Jadustya Yadurmati Bhir Jiryato Jani Jiryate Tam Trishnandu Kanibaham Sarmakamo Drutam Tyajet. Ya, that which Dustyaya, extremely difficult to give up. Durmativihi, by persons too attached to material enjoyment. Jiryataha, even by one who is an invalid because of old age. Ya, that which, na, not, jiryate, is vanquished. Tam, such, trishnam, desire, dukkhanivaham, which is the cause of all tribulations. Sarmakamaha, a person desiring his own happiness. Drutam, very soon, Tyayet, should give up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. For those who are too attached to material enjoyment, sense gratification is very difficult to give up. Even when one is an invalid because of old age, one cannot give up such desires for sense gratification. Therefore, one who actually desires happiness must give up such unsatisfied desires, which are the cause of all tribulations. Purport. We actually see, especially in the Western countries, that men who have reached more than 80 years of age still go to nightclubs and pay heavy fees to drink wine and associate with women. Although such men are too old to enjoy anything, their desires have not ceased. Time deteriorates even the body itself, which is the medium for all sensual satisfaction. But even when a man becomes old and invalid, his desires are strong enough to dictate that he go here and there to satisfy the desires of his senses. Therefore, by the practice of bhakti yoga, one should give up his lusty desires, as explained by Sri Jamuna Acharya. Jadavadhi mamacheta Krishna padaravinde nava rasa damanyudyatam ratun ashi tadavadhi batanari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukha bhikhara shustu nishtavanam cha. When one is Krishna conscious, he gets more and more happiness by discharging duties for Krishna. Such person spits on sense gratification, especially that of sexual enjoyment. An experienced advanced devotee is no longer interested in sex life. The strong desire for sex can be subdued only by advancement in Krishna consciousness. Yadustyaya durmati bir jir yato yani jir yate tam trishnan dukkani vaham sarma kamo dutantyayet. For those who are too attached to material enjoyment, sense gratification is very difficult to give up, even when one is an invalid because of old age. One cannot give up such desires for sense gratification. Therefore, one who actually desires happiness must give up such unsatisfied desires, which are the cause of all tribulations. Om Agyana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Prabhupada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Satarine Vanchakalpatarubhyasha Kripasindubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yesterday, I've spent a little time speaking with my family, who were gathering in different places. Specifically, I spoke with my father and the family that is in Venezuela. And my father is right now 81. And he's basking. He's a very nice man, a soft-hearted man, and very, positive. He has very positive things, but he's very attached. And he's basking right now in the love of the family. And he's happy externally. And he is the elder of the whole family. So it's a big family, so everybody looked to him, and because he's the eldest, then everybody takes care of him. So he's basking on that family happiness. And you can see it happens to people, especially in places with families still strong, that it's almost like that's the goal of life, to come to the end of your life and have, the love of family, the affection, and being able to enjoy those loving relationships. And it's almost like you cannot get enough of that. They get together, and they get together, and they get together. In despite of the very miserable situations, circumstances that surround daily life, just those moments are worthy. That's the feeling. Those special moments, 3-4 hours of being together with the family, are worth anything, any type of austerity, any type of miseries that you have to pass through life. And that's a sense that I get, from my elder father. Very attached. And you can imagine when death comes, what happens. The suffering that will cause losing that you're so attached to. Prabhupada, King Yayati, says that if you're attached to this enjoyment, sense gratification is an impossibility to give up. And going through life and facing death with those desires that cannot be fulfilled. Who's there? Ram Prakash. Tell him to be soft. So to be with those desires, and basically is what King Yayati says, that they become unfulfilled because they want more. It doesn't become satiated. Is that you give fuel to those desires, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. There is this said that this is thirst. What is the term that my Guru Maharaj quotes? That there is a thirst for, instead of having a thirst for Krishna, you have a thirst for sense gratification. The word here is used trishna. Trishna means desire. Krishna is Krishna. Trishna is desires. So one have this thirst, like it doesn't lessen with taking, some water, but you want more and more and more. And one psychological aspect that we usually don't see at least in decent people, in some gross people you see, but in decent people it's hidden, is that people who are too attached to sense gratification still remain attached to sex enjoyment. The problem is that their bodies, although the desire is there in the mind, their bodies can't do anything. I mean, when the body deteriorates, it's finished. And boy, they try very hard in this culture, in the Western culture, to keep it going. So they have all kinds of chemical drugs to maintain, the virility of all men. Which the whole thing is pretty pathetic when one thinks about it. And but that's a manifestation. This unfulfilled and such a strong desire for sense gratification through old age, and in the manifestation of trying to enjoy sexually or like sensually, like that, it just doesn't go away up to the deathbed. There's a very nice story that Prabhupada tells. I'm sure you heard it before. When the great King Akbar the Great, he asked his ministers one time, how long does one remain in lusty desires? It's interesting. This is a very qualified king. And this is a very important question, especially for those who are very well versed with those who have some transcendental knowledge. How long does one remain in lusty desires? And this very clever minister, he replied, up to the last point of death. And the king say, no, that's not possible. When you're dying, you have so many, you're dying. What you have to do with sex desire and lusty desires? You're more worried and preoccupied by, your body is just like giving up. So no, that's not possible. And the minister say, okay, so I should reply in time. Just when it's the right time, I'll let you know, and I should reply and show you that this is the case. So after some time passed, the minister one day, all of a sudden, told the king, my dear king, please meet me at this place and bring your daughter with you, the young princess. And Akbar trusted this minister. He's very intelligent. So he knows it's not a waste of time. He knows it's something important. So he didn't know what he has in mind, but he complied. He met him at this particular place with his beautiful daughter. And the minister said, my dear king, I'm taking you to the room of a man who is about to die. Kindly study the man's face. Study him very carefully. Especially study his face as you enter, the room. And when he entered the room, King Akbar looked at the face of the old man who was just about to die in his deathbed. And although the king entered his room, his eyes went to the young daughter and was almost fixated, although he was saying, "Thank you, my dear king," but he was looking at the daughter. And then he could understood. Akbar understood, yes, it's true. Up to the last point of death, these desires, they don't go away, lusty desires. The man was looking at the young girl. He wanted to see, even his body was gone, he would still want to enjoy the beautiful face and form of the young girl by seeing. So the moral that Prabhupada says is that if one does not use his youthful years in Krishna conscious austerities, then his senses will be on control, and even when one is aged, many lusty desires will remain in the heart. But actually, even the lusty desires are there, he won't be able to do anything with it or about it. And it's an embarrassing situation that will deny one the possibility to return back home, back to Godhead. You have to take another birth, regardless. So, it's a very important lesson that, and that's how important that when one is in a student life, one gets trained in the principles of Vairagya and Vidya, transcendental knowledge and renunciation. How important is that one gets trained in the process of sadhana bhakti? Because the process of sadhana bhakti, by the process of sadhana bhakti, one develops naturally these two qualities, Vairagya and Vidya. So, Srila Rupa Goswami, he tells about the process, specifically the verse that he quotes, the Atasi Krishna Namadi Navabed Grahyam Indriya Sevam Mukhe Jivado Swayam Evas Puradyadha. It's a famous verse, and that summarizes the message that we have to learn from this verse that Kim Yayati speaks about it. Ata Sri Krishna Namadi. That he says that, he's speaking, that Sri Krishna Namadi, that the holy name of Krishna, his form, his qualities, his pastimes, and so on, cannot be perceived. Nababet grahyam. It cannot be perceived nor manifest with indriyae, with blown senses, with senses that are contaminated. So we can actually perceive at all Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes, and any of that. So that's the fact. That's what we start, most of us, conditioned souls. When we have these bodies and we recognize ourselves with the body, when we have this misidentification of the self with the body, we cannot experience the transcendental name, qualities, and form of Krishna. So, how do you get there? How can we get there? Then Srila Rupa Goswami says, Sevam Mukhi Hijivado, devotional service. Devotional service that starts with the engagement of the tongue, which becomes quite revealing. So you stars means stars, it's not exclusively, but you start with the engagement of the tongue. Two things are given with the engagement of the tongue. One is to vibrate Shabda Brahma, or spiritual sound vibrations. And the other one is to control or regulate what you eat, tasting. So the two functions of the tongue gets engaged. One function is the one that allows to hear, to enter into contact with transcendental sound vibration. That what is the purpose of transcendental sound vibration? It purifies. It purifies the senses. It purifies the mind. Cheto darpana marjanam. Srimbatan swakata krishnan. Punyan shravanam kirtanam. Hidrunoti hebadrani. Then nashta praeshva vadreshu, like that. So it cleanses the heart just by the vibration of this transcendental sound. So once become purified, our senses become purified. And that's the process of sadhana bhakti that engages in the 9 process of devotional service, but it starts with Shravan and Kirtan, Vishnu Smaranam. So the tongue, we start with that, Shravan and Kirtanam, with the tongue. And then the other one is regulations. You start to regulate. You eat Krishna Prasadam, only foods that have been offered to the Lord in sacrifice, which in itself is as powerful and purifying for the senses as the holy name. Prasadam. What is the verse that it says that we recite during the Prasadam prayers? Now I got a blank. No, before Sarita Vidya. Mahaprasade Govinde Namo Brahmani Vaishnave. So Mahaprasadam Govinda, Mahaprasadam Govinde, Nam, the name, Brahmanas. If we don't see them equally, then finish. No Krishna consciousness. Then, these are very powerful. So Mahaprasadam is there in the same purifying level of seeing Govinda or hearing this holy name or associating with Brahmanas, like that. So the tongue, the tastings of Mahaprasad, and also the regulation of the tongue. You eat only that is regulating. So one start with it, and Swayam Eva Spuradyada, that then by that, then all these things becomes manifested. One's senses becomes purified, and then we can start to experience, the transcendental Lord. So that's a process that we're engaging as students. That's the first thing that we've been taught by our spiritual master. We've been engaged in the process of devotional service, starting with hearing and chanting. And we've been trained in the process of sacrifice of controlling when given the 4 regulated principles, that is regulating our sensual engagements. We are given ekadasi that allow us to regulate. So all these practices are meant to help us become very comfortable with controlling the senses. And then only through a lifetime of practice of that, at one point, one have the capacity to see that the 2 things happens. You start to experience the spiritual happiness of coming into contact with the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship that is there. So by that contact one experiences happiness, parandrishta nivartante. One experiences, some higher taste. And that's, we all have that. In varieties of quantities according to where our consciousness is, but we experience, every devotee experiences this parandrishta nivartante. So, one experiences that, and by the experience of that happiness, gradually we can start to understand that the happiness that is there, that derives from the satisfaction of the senses, is nothing in comparison. In fact, one starts to see that the satisfaction of the senses, that type of life, the life of sense gratification, the cause of moments of sense gratification, there's so much misery that you have to go through for those moments that is basically it's an illusion. It's an illusory happiness. Because the fact is that you're surrounded by misery and it doesn't gonna go away. It's just gonna increase. To the point of death, that is at the ultimate miserable experience. And that's when everything gets taken away. And it's so miserable for people that they get so attached that they remain in their subtle body, still holding to those things. They remain as ghosts, connected to those things that they're attached. And that existence of ghosts is basically simply an extension of the consciousness that they have of attached persons, very attached persons. And that's something that is a common occurrence on cultures that encourage these extreme attachments and extreme pursuit of sense gratification. There's a huge ghost population, huge. That's where also, I guess, maybe not only in the West, because in Vedic culture, in general, the Pinda ceremony is to help our ancestors to become free from those ghostly conditions. So when you offer them prasad, they give you free, and then they can go to a Pitriloka to, be in a much better situation. But the consciousness of a ghost is similar to that, the consciousness of an invalid old person. That basically you don't have a body that can respond to the intensity of your material desires. So it's a very frustrating thing. But the ghost is the ultimate one. They actually, because they don't have a physical body, then that cannot interact in any way. So in general, they become very frustrated, and they causes some, they throw some tantrums, and they cause some disturbances in time. So the moral of this thing is that one should give up. As soon as one can, one should give up this pursuit for sense gratification. And that's the process that we're following. We're following the process of is not giving up a body and giving up the functions of the body, but actually learning how to use this body for the purpose of self-realization. And that's the instruction that we've been given by Krishna and Krishna's representative, that the senses, the body, our minds, our words are used to glorify it and to serve, to give pleasure to Guru and Krishna. And with that, having clear that we're pursuing self-realization, then we can go with our life pretty happy. The Ishopanishad tells that we can live 100 years like that, and in a very balanced, happy state. Doesn't mean that the world changed, doesn't mean that the body changed. As long as we have a body, the body is going to act like the body, and it's going to have pushes. The body is going to go to deterioration. The body is going to still want to eat, want to defend, want to mate, and sleep. So the body is going to demand those things. But as we become advanced in Krishna consciousness, those demands doesn't disturb our consciousness. We remain stita dhira, perfectly situated. Perfectly situated. Krishna explains that to Arjuna, that an stita dhira is a person that, even though the senses are demanding, he has control of them. He can, just like the tortoise, bring it in or bring it out accordingly. So that's the training that we're getting. We're getting the training to control the senses. And when we become Krishna consciousness, advance in Krishna consciousness, then the circumstances, external and internal, don't disturb our consciousness. So therefore we see, perfect example, Srila Prabhupada, although his body was fully given in right onto the point of his passing, his consciousness was not affected. He was still dictating the Bhaktivedanta purpose, all to the time of, the last moment, the last breath. So not affected by any of the pushes of the body, any of the circumstances of the body. And that's the ideal that we try to pursue. So now is the moment, especially for those of you who are still young, to understand the purpose of this training And it's gonna, if you take it, the more serious you take it at this time, then it's gonna save you a lot of grievances later on. Because anyway, we have to do it. We have to do it at one stage or another. It becomes more difficult when you have the responsibilities of family life to do it, because you have more things that are taking your time and your energy. But when you're a student, you have less complications, so you can really enter into doing these things, becoming very comfortable on controlling your senses, regulating them by regulations. We can't necessarily be having these unrealistic expectations that one have this perfect control of the senses, and then I'm gonna deny the senses. There's so many examples of devotees that go extreme, and then, eventually they fall down, because they're pretending, they're trying to be in a stage that they don't belong to yet. So one has to be realistic and honest. Now, to be realistic and honest, in general, we're not very objective about it if we do it, independently. We need the help of a guide, of a teacher, and a very experienced person who can tell us, yeah, no, that idea is not good, that's not your position, you start from here. So it keeps us, it gives us a very objective understanding of where we start. So the guidance of our spiritual master is a must during this period of training and purification. Without the guidance of the spiritual master, there's no possibility, basically. You have to be already quite an advanced soul, a Sukadev Goswami, to be able to do it, on your own. So we need to be trained. We need to have a very objective understanding of what are the things, where we start, so you can continue moving very, very smoothly in this path of Krishna consciousness. And one have to take it seriously, because the fact is that as long as we have these bodies, they're going to be creating a lot of obstacles and distractions. And it's not easy to get rid of this misidentification. So we need to take it very seriously. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. I have a question, but first I have a comment. This verse reminds me of, there's an article, Back to Godhead article, that one devotee wrote. It's actually entitled Viagra versus Vairagya. That's pretty good. And so this title reminded me kind of, you could say, the Haridasa Kaur pastime, the prostitute. Basically, there's a phrase, a lusty phrase, where someone wants to get sexually aroused, you turn me on. So the prostitute came to Haridasa Kaur and said, can you turn me on? And so he said yes, but he actually didn't turn her on to Viagra. He turned her on to Vairagya. And so you could say this word turning on can also mean to turn on one's Krishna consciousness, to turn on a light. So that's what I kind of appreciate about this. But my question is related to the point you said we have to be honest and realistic in our Krishna consciousness. But sometimes my questions are essentially the same. Sometimes our honesty and realism takes us away from Krishna consciousness. Let me associate among hypocrites like me. And when I'm pure enough, then I'll come to the temple. But actually, the temple is meant for people who are impure, who are the most fallen. But still, how do we program our brains to stay in the temple? You can't get purified outside in the world. You come to the hospital for purification. So that's why it's kind of discouraging when you see people leave because they feel, I'm too fallen. Well, great. You're supposed to be at the temple. So what are any steps you could do to maintain your determination or reprogram your brain?
Well, one thing that you learn eventually, is that from both, and as a preacher, that one have to have developed the intelligence to qualify the capacity that the devotees have. Sometimes you encourage someone to move into the temple, but it's not the right time. And whatever we do, we have to understand and be very well, we have to have a very strong understanding of what the purpose of what we're doing. It's not that you get anyone and say, yeah, here, let me, register in this college. And then let me see, okay, yeah, I'll put you in medical school. This guy, what am I supposed to do here? What's medical? What, you don't have much idea really. You just plunk in there. And then, you learn. Yeah, you get associated with these doctors and with the students. You get to understand what you're going to do. That doesn't work very well. The moving into the temple is a very extraordinary, living in the temple is a very extraordinary opportunity that actually mind-boggling extraordinary. And we have to basically understand that we have to prepare people to being able to appreciate and take full advantage of this extraordinary opportunity. And that's a thing that sometimes we haven't done very well, with the good intention of giving people the opportunity to experience this extraordinary opportunity type of thing. So better is when we actually develop the intelligence to qualify it and to help people to understand. So you can have different stages. People don't have to move in the tempo to advance in Krishna consciousness. You can cultivate them. You can invite them, to come here for a day or a weekend or a retreat. So they experience the life, and then like that, at one point when they're ready, they move into the temple. And that's a better arrangement. So, in general, we have to, when we're dealing with devotees that are just beginning their Krishna consciousness, and even, devotees in general, which are moving from the neophyte to the madhyama, to the mid-platform, that is basically many of us, that we're still in that Kanishta platform. we need is absolutely compulsory that we need guidance. We don't have, I made that point when I said, we don't have the capacity to discern where is the actual, the position that is right for us. We don't have that objectivity. Most likely, we have a very bloated sense of what we can do. Like you say, like, you know, yeah. Sometimes we have misunderstandings of, you know, maybe we can do more also. Sometimes we either have it expanded or have it, you know, have no confidence of the capacity that we have to. So not very objective. We all need that. We're depending on that guidance. So there's the spiritual master, the one who gives us the prescription. Yeah, you do like this, and you do like this. And then we follow. And it's not something that, okay, my spiritual master, whatever, 10 years ago told me, you do like this, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do, and I don't have to consult anymore with my spiritual master. It's a dynamic thing that consistently you have to do it. My Guru Maharaj personally likes, he have this arrangement sometimes of getting reports. Or he placed you, the disciple, in the care of someone that he trusts, a responsible devotee, and you get these reports type of things. So, meaning that you're helped throughout to understand where you're at. If we leave it to ourselves, really, we're going to concoct something that is just not going to, then we wonder why we're getting stuck, you know, like that. So, important principle, I think. It's a Chinese.
Thank you very much, Guru. One thing that intensifies this illicit, lusty desire is the context in which one finds himself, particularly in the Western Hemisphere. Our society and our culture are so devoid of really any semblance of a dharmic lifestyle. So, in the Vedic sense of Dharma and Bhagavatam, the Dharma prescription given by Krishna. So, in terms of subduing a lusty desire, being in this atmosphere, it becomes very much more difficult even for devotees. So my question was, personally, after spending some time in India, I found it very helpful getting a different perspective and kind of resetting our existential outlook on society and culture. But even despite the point that you're making that we want to curb this lust within the heart, we want to reduce the opportunity for that to develop and grow. So the sooner you can give it up, the better. But we also see a lot of, in our devotional communities, the encouragement of higher education, so-called higher education, the modern educational system, or going into the work world. Those become rather regular or standard practices for devotees. But it seems that this whole atmosphere that we're entering into, are we able to really transcend or overcome those negative influences? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that was the whole concern of the sages of Naimisharanya. It's Kali Yuga. So in Kali Yuga there's not great deal of support. I mean, actually, he's saying it very nicely. Especially in this, Melecha world, that, I mean, there's some little resemble of Vedic culture in India. I mean, Prabhupada said Vedic culture is like an elephant, and in India you have the dead elephant. However, even the dead elephant is still very valuable. You can get the ivory and things like that. But right here, we just have a dead dog, it's like, there's no much value. It's like a rotten society. So it becomes more difficult. It becomes much more of an obstacle because of the samskaras that we have. So what do? And we were saying that those of us who have the misfortune of taking birth on this Melecha land, the samskaras are very, very difficult. And to get rid of those images and conditioning is a bigger obstacle. Especially, we're bombarded from childhood with breaking the 4 regulated principles. The uncontrolled pursuits of sense gratification. In other societies, like in India, at least there's a greater emphasis on duties, especially social and family duties. Right here, the emphasis is on the individual. You take care of our number one, and number one is number one. Everybody else is number 2, 3, 4, like that. So the biggest duty that you have is to take care of yourself, to make sure that you're taken care. Don't sacrifice yourself for someone else. Sacrifice something when you secure your stuff, but don't sacrifice yours. That's the paradigm of our culture. So it's much more of a bigger obstacles that we come with. So what do? And Srila Prabhupada and our Acharyas, they specifically, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told Srila Prabhupada, the Western world. You go and preach there. He didn't say, stay here in India. I'm sure that, you can do a big thing here in India because, a powerful Acharya in a culture that is sort of like familiar with that, it will be an explosion. So, and then, no, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wanted the Western world, English speaking, the Western world. And that's what Prabhupada did. And that's what Prabhupada also, that was his mission. And so there is the mission of ISKCON still. That we have to bring this culture very strongly to the Western speaking, to the Western world. So then what do? You have to be here and you have to preach here. And, so we have to overcome these things. Okay, yeah, very easy to say, how, not so easy to do. So how? Well, my understanding is that we have extra mercy. Joe Chaitanya's especially mercy. And the mercy of of our Acharyas. And there's no doubt we experience that mercy when we're locked in. I remember one time going on. I mean, you know, I admit I have very bad samskaras, so the controlling is always being a struggle. So, but I remember Harinam in New York. In New York in the 80s was crazy. And remember going on Harinam in the village, and you know, then there was this woman's, they came out of a window and they started to expose themselves to the Harinam. You know, and we were so locked in that in general, you know, in any situation you go like, you know, that affects your consciousness. But in this situation, it's like, you know, we were locked in. It's almost like you're fully protected when you're locked in the Yuga Dharma, in serving Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada. And we're fully protected. Not even, you know, like, you know, it's like, you know, Yamunacharya think, come on, you know, like, you keep doing your Hare Krishna thing. Now, you're not in your dhoti, your tilak, your mardanga, surrounded by devotees chanting Hare Krishna. You're walking with, you know, your karmic clothes by yourself, and there you go, some beautiful woman exposed herself to you. What's going to happen? And you're minding, you know, some material thing that you're doing. It's like your consciousness become affected. So what's the solution that we have? Well, we have to really take shelter of Lord Chaitanya and the service. So we're protected. And if we find ourselves that we're becoming affected by the pushes of our senses, that it means that we're not taking full shelter. We're taking other shelters that are not the shelter of Guru and Krishna, Guru and Gauranga. So we have to adjust ourselves. I'm missing something. And in general is that our sadhana is full with distractions. So you try harder. So that's what Krishna looks for us, you know. So we're protected. And in one sense, we're in this process of purifying ourselves. Krishna is showing us. You think you're so advanced? Well, here you go. And then, you know, our consciousness gets tremendously affected by some circumstance, either loss or anger or greed or, you know, any of these bad qualities, bad samskaras gets triggered, and then we'll get faced with some miserable, you know, situation. We get exposed to that, and then we can actually, you know, become more objective. Boy, I'm not that advanced. Actually, I'm pretty much of a big mess. So I have to then, you know, take a much humble position and submit myself to those who guide me, and then open my heart, say, you know, this is happening. I don't know what to do. And then we'll get, you know, the instruction. Sometimes the instruction is already there for, you know, dealing with the thing. And then, okay, am I applying the instruction? Because it's no use to go every other day to ask the same question to your spiritual master. Yeah, I've been giving you the same answer for, you know, whatever, so many years. Just apply it. I'm talking about my own experience. You know, I've been dealing with some things, you know, basically for 30 years. So, So apply it. When it comes to understanding, we have to apply it. You know. So if we apply it, we're protected. If we are disturbed, means that we're not applying, because really, it's a perfect system, and Lord Chaitanya's mercy is just there. I mean, he doesn't miss anything. He's, you know, and what I understood is that Lord Chaitanya is very, very kind. Even a little thing that you do, even if you fall down, if you have served him sincerely, he will look after you. I mean, there's just the classic example in ISKCON of Buddhimanta Prabhu, who was, you know, the first person who did big book, you know, Krishna book distribution, the ones that figured it out. And from there, you know, the whole thing exploded. And he was such a dedicated book distributor that after Prabhupada left the world, he fell down. And for the rest of 20 years, he was gone in Maya. Do you met him, Jitendra Prabhu? He used to be here at the airport. Yeah. And he left. And then when he came back to the devotees with a terminal cancer disease. Brain tumor. Yeah. So, you know, terminal. He was gone. And then the devotees, Krishna arranged for the devotees to come in contact with him again, take him to Vrindavan, and he left his body in Vrindavan in perfect Krishna consciousness, back home, back to Godhead. Lord Chaitanya didn't forget him. And Srila Prabhupada say, even if we come to the time of death and you're not able to remember Krishna, if you serve Lord Chaitanya sincerely, the Sankirtan mission, Lord Chaitanya personally will come and grab you by the sikha and take you back home, back to Godhead, Prabhupada said. So, you know, the protection is there. Even if we don't see it, you know. But, so if we find ourselves disturbed, then we just have to apply. Yes, Yutendri, and then we finish.
I think it was Prabhupada that about the old man, you know, and Prabhupada said, I think there's no fool like an old fool. And then there was a song by Simon and Garfunkel, says, faking it, I'm faking it, I'm not really making it. And there was this devotee here, Chandra, that was working in the prison ministry in Utah. He told me something that was really kind of unique. He says, fake it till you make it.
Yes, that's a famous one.
Consciousness. I thought that was pretty funny and also revealing. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, Prabhupada says like that, you know, you keep, you know, even if you don't feel it, you still dance and raise your arms, you know, and eventually you feel.
If you're not enthusiastic, become enthusiastic.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. Karantarashman Bhagavatam ki jai.